Here's your host, Alex Garrett.
I'm Alex Garrett, and with me today on Alex Garrett Podcasting is someone that coaches a sport that's really home to me because, growing up at the Henry Viscardi School and Joe Salonica and wheelchair basketball, to see CUNY Athletics, the City University of New York Athletics Department, branch out into adaptive sports like this means the world as a CUNY alum, as a Queens College alum. And the coach of the wheelchair basketball team for CUNY, Team CUNY, Ryan Martin, men's and women's wheelchair basketball, is with me now. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. This is a pleasure.
So last week I got to call actually the Sunday game against Edinburgh, the men's wheelchair basketball team. But I've seen the women as well, and they're both, fiery squads, and it's exciting to see. So first of all, tell us your story as how you became part of the wheelchair basketball world and became coach for CUNY.
So the older you get, the longer that journey becomes and the longer that story becomes. So I'll give you the abridged version. So I had the fortune, I started playing wheelchair basketball when I was a teenager. I went on to play in college on a scholarship at Southwest Minnesota State University. And like wheelchair basketball has really been, an awesome vehicle for me in life as far as getting a chance to travel, getting my education and all of those things. And so I ended up going to play professionally in Europe for several years. And so I played in Spain and France. And when I came back to the US, I had already started my nonprofit, which was developing sports programs for youth with disabilities. I kind of got thrusted into the intercollegiate space and did some work with the University of Connecticut and then the University of Michigan. And so when CUNY reached out and Dr. Rosa reached out, it seemed like a really great opportunity just because the unique amount of students with disabilities that CUNY has and the potential at a lot of universities, the critical mass of students with disabilities isn't as profound as it is at CUNY. And so it was really interesting to me to be able to approach a strategic plan.
Sure.
That allowed us to work with such a dense population already.
Well, and by the way, Viscardi alum Destiny Murray started this whole project with CUNY. She's a leader on that women's wheelchair basketball team. So let's start there. Big weekend for them at the CUNY Collegiate Invitational. Tell us about the women's side first.
Yeah, so the women's side, Destiny is a huge part. We call Destiny Harlem, right? Destiny brings a certain attitude to the game, but, Destiny is just, as a player, in her first year playing collegiately, is improving leaps and bounds. And all of the women are really making great strides. And I think their team chemistry, it has really been awesome. And as things get a little more challenging and, we're adapting to this ever-changing landscape in New York City, they seem to be right there, really supporting each other. And I've been really happy with the chemistry that they've developed as a group.
And I know that this is a CUNY-wide thing. It's not just Queens College. All of the boroughs are pretty much represented with these teams, are they not?
Yeah, so we have athletes from 13 of the different CUNY campuses. And so, the idea was to, provide this opportunity to as many different students. And I think, as we build out the strategic plan to include more sports and, impact more boroughs and more campuses, I think it'll be something where you see, students from all of our CUNY schools involved.
That would be great. But back to recap the women's weekend from a couple weekends ago. I mean, I saw them in Hostos against the Rolling Liberty, and they played them again that Saturday. Those two games alone, how are you feeling going into, the upcomings against Illinois in that tournament, and then against Edinburgh also in February?
Yeah, so I'm happy. I think we've made a lot of strides. We're further along than where I thought we would be at this point in the season, but I also think there's some room for growth. I think we need obviously some more depth on the roster. We've had some different injuries and different things like that that have kind of impacted kind of our trajectory as a group. But I think we have a really tight knit group where everybody's kind of bought into their roles. And in my experience playing, I think the teams where everybody buys into their roles are better than the teams that are just uberly talented, right? And everybody's kind of wants to be the main player and all of those things like that. So I think I'd like to see us be able to kind of diversify how we approach things from an offensive end. We rely a lot on Sierra and Crystal to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And so I'd like to see if we can kind of develop a little more variety in our offensive attack. Sure. But like I said, we're getting there.
And I mean, I don't know if you consider them tune-ups because Rolling Liberty are really good. So what was your reaction to how they played them both times?
I thought it was really good. I mean, I thought we adapted. I thought when the Liberty were really aggressive and physical, we were able to take care of that. I thought when they tried to get up and, kind of press Sierra and try to keep Sierra out, I thought Destiny did a really great job of running some cross picks and freeing up Sierra in the open court. And I was really happy to see, I think Kat has really improved and Jesse is kind of figuring it out each and every time they go out there. They're getting just that much better. And so it's fun to watch from like where we started to like where we are now, just the overall, incremental growth.
All right, let's go to the men's side because I mean, the men's team seems to be defined by Chris St. Remy right now, but when you look at it from the outside, but how much of a team effort is this? I mean, you've got guys on the boards getting the rebounds for for the team. I mean, tell us about the overall, along with St. Remy. I mean, it's a team effort there, not just him, right?
Yeah, I mean, Chris is an exceptional player, like a world-class offensive player, right? And our team is really heavily relying on him to score the ball, but we've got people setting him up, whether it's Errol and Roger getting him the ball in the post, and we've got guys that are taking on a larger defensive burden. So Chris can focus more on the offensive side. So it's definitely a team game. But, this past weekend, he really had it going from an offensive standpoint. And one of the things that makes Chris a really special offensive player is he's got the ability to score at all three levels. He can shoot from the perimeter, mid-range. And you saw him do a considerable amount of work in the post where he just got inside. And when Chris is playing at his best, he's doing a little bit of everything.
Well, I got to say, Roger, on the boards, the defensive boards were just one after the other. You guys had the rebounds one after the other, it felt like.
Yeah. And I mean, I thought this was the first time that our CUNY men's team has played against another, collegiate program in Edinburgh University. And Edinburgh is a well-coached team with, Coach Jim Glatch, a former USA coach and the director of high performance for the NWBA. So they're a well-coached team, a very young team. And I thought we were able to take advantage on just overall execution and finding different things. And I mean, we rode the hot hand, but I would have to say that we had a lot of guys working for Chris, whether it was Dennis and Malkeet to get them into, to get Chris into the spot. So as much as when I looked at the box score, Chris, I think he had 41 on the game on Sunday that you were there. There was a lot of other people doing things, on the floor to allow Chris to shine from an offensive standpoint. But it's no surprise, I think, that when we play other collegiate teams like Alabama, Missouri, and Texas, they're going to try to take Chris away, and we're going to need other guys to make some shots, most notably probably Abdul. I think Abdul's got a skill set where he can really hurt you in a lot of ways. He's just a super talented player. And if we did combine testing of speed, agility, all of those sort of things, he would test off the charts for our program. He's just a really great athlete. And so, the challenge that we have is trying to get some of those guys up to what's going to be expected of them against better teams.
I've got to talk about the fouling because I think in regular basketball, people honestly get tired of like, why are they fouling with like 5 seconds left and whatever. But with wheelchair basketball and all the crashing, you'd think it would be often more often. Yet you guys are so disciplined. I think you only had a few fouls in that game alone. So is that something you teach, the discipline of maybe even using the chair in gameplay like that?
I thought the refs let us go a bit there.
Okay.
So I thought that was kind of a looser called game, if you will. I thought there
Okay.
was a lot of chair contact and different things like that on both sides. So I think we try to teach how to be really physical on the chair,
Sure.
and that's one of the areas where I think defensively we give up a lot of space, but where I'd like us to take away some of that space, because against more talented teams and more talented players, space is a problem. So I think that's one of the focuses we've had since our games with Edinburgh, is to really just try to fine tune that defensive effort. And, if you get beat, you get beat, but to not give so much space on the offensive end.
Well, I gotta say, I remember calling a few and ones for you guys. So how do you get that aggressiveness and draw the foul? I mean, is there a technique to this, or are they just going hard to the paint every time down?
I mean, our guys go pretty hard at it. So I think it was, and I think there was a lot of energy in the gym just from them being our first collegiate games. This has been,
Sure.
a program that was delayed for a couple of years based on, the COVID protocols and all of that sort of stuff. So I think they were really eager, to play another collegiate program and to kind of see
Sure.
where they're at.
Well, I got to ask you because when in Hostos in December, you played the Rolling Knicks and Steve Serio, the Paralympic captain. I mean, it was a big night. Obviously, it was a tough night for you guys. But did you expect? Are you happy the way they rebounded? I guess my first question. Secondly, were you happy with that performance? Because it was a delayed start to begin with. So anytime you got on the floor in the last few months, I'm sure it's been a work in progress, no matter what.
Yeah, I think if you look at the season from a holistic standpoint, you just want to get better each time out, right? And we knew that playing the Knicks when you're playing against Pat and Steve is going to be a really tough game with those two guys. And I think it showed all our team like where we need to be, right? A lot of times when you beat a team that might not be as talented as you're going to get complacent. And we played a couple of games before the Knicks where whether we played well or not, we were going to pull off the win. And so it was nice to get them reminded of like, hey, no, this is what the sport's supposed to look like. This is the speed level that it's supposed to be. And, you take small teachable moments from a game where you win like that, or you lose like that, like, hey, there's not one thing you could do to adjust to a 40-point loss. But there are some incremental things that you can say, hey, this is an opportunity for growth for us as a team.
I got to ask you, because I know when they first started this in December, I mean, people were filing into, Queens College. So what was that like, the first exhibition, to see fans come out? I know his family and whatnot, but to see that support, what was that like?
Yeah, our athletes our student athletes were super eager to have fans. I think everybody wants to play in front of their family and friends and stuff like that. And, I think at first we were really just happy to be back on the court playing games. And I think, us this weekend, we were able to have some, people's family come. I mean, even like, Queens limited different things, and understandably so, with, kind of the social climate we have with COVID and on the campuses now. But I think they're really proud of the program, both the men's and women's side, and proud of the work they've put in and the strides they've made. So I think, I can understand why they want people to come support them. And, the university as a whole has been really great, whether it's the students with disabilities, or whether it's faculty, or whether it's the other athletes in some of the able-bodied sports realms have been really supportive of it. So, it'll be nice when we can get back into trying to fill the gym for a Saturday or Sunday game. But like that was a nice step in that direction.
All right. So CUNY is a big, collegiate system that's adapted to, wheelchair basketball, but you're seeing it across the country. I mean, you're going to Illinois. So what's it mean to see D1 programs even start picking this up now?
Well, I think you've seen, I think you've seen a handful of, blue blood programs like your Illinois, your Texases, your Wisconsin Whitewaters, your Southwest that have been around for years. And then I think you're starting to see some emergence of new programs.
Okay.
Whether it's, down in the SEC part of the country, Missouri,
Alabama.
Alabama. I think the best way to explain it to somebody who doesn't have a lens on adaptive sports would be to suggest that like it more operates like women's sports did pre-Title IX, where some universities had it, some colleges had it, but there wasn't a formatted way. It wasn't as, funding wasn't guaranteed and all of that. So I think you see adaptive sports really kind of in that mold right now, like a pre-Title IX, and really trying to find their footing on individual campuses. But you don't see any like macro level involvement from like the NCAA, and you don't see a lot of campuses that, truly embrace it. It's not a, in the world of college athletics, there's two worlds. Like there's the revenue creating sports and the non-revenue creating sports, and I think that's part of the challenge, right? To convince a university that this is beyond an inclusive effort. I always say, I don't know which rapper said it, but if it makes dollars, it makes sense. I mean, higher ed is that way. Like, if you can find a business model that shows a university that, hey, this is a revenue generating opportunity, or even like a revenue neutral opportunity, I think you have a better level of success.
I want to know about the inclusivity, because I feel like, these student athletes, they don't see it as like an inspirational thing. They want to win. But to the outside world, people with disabilities doing things is inspirational, yet you guys are just smashing that stigma by winning and going hard. So maybe, I don't know, I think people need to come out and see this and say that, this is more than just inspirational. This is for real. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of folks. I mean, like sports is all inspirational, right? Whatever the sport is, right? There's a component of like, wow, I can't do a 360 slam dunk, right? Or I can't throw the javelin that far, or whatever the sport is, right? So a little bit of it is, but I think the issue that we get into in the adaptive world space is kind of like that inspo porn, like where it's like, oh my God, it's motivational because like, oh, you threw up a shot and it hit the bottom of the net. Where like me from a competitive mindset is like, you airballed the shot. Like,
exactly.
Let's react accordingly. And I think once people can frame it in the way that they frame sports in general, I think it's better off, because I also think, like sports is a great catalyst for societal change, like when you look at, Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier, and a lot of different like social climate changes that were impacted by sports. I think the Paralympic sports movement in general can change kind of the paradigm of what we anticipate for people with disabilities, right? And I always make the argument that if I can change your perspective on the Paralympic movement from a sporting modality, can I change how you view somebody with a disability in the same classroom, in the same office environment? And
Sure.
And I think that is the long-term benefits to, Paralympic sports.
Well, you talking about revenue for just a second, and I noticed there were some live reads being done at the gym the other day. So how are you able to get people companies invested in this adaptive sport at such a it's almost like the birth of it for CUNY, because you haven't had a lot of games. So how are you able to bring in people to invest early on and support the program?
I think there's a climate now for companies to get involved with sponsorship of the Paralympic Games, right? The Paralympic Games brings in revenue just like the Olympic Games. So I think you see more companies that are inclusive minded and want to align their brand with, adaptive sports or the Paralympic level sports. So I think it's, I don't want to say easy, because generally speaking, fundraising and development work isn't easy. It's laborious, it's time consuming. But I think you'll see that more companies, especially as we get ready to host the 28 Olympics in the US, you see companies such as like Nike and Citibank and all those type of companies, really investing in that. And so I think that's a good thing. But I mean, development is just like, in fundraising, it's just work. Like there is no way around it. It's networking, it's grassroots networking, it's all of those things that you would imagine it to be.
And it's your support from the commissioner. I mean, Zach is amazing, right? And so he's been part of this. Matthew, the SID, has been part of me. It's like a hands-on effort here. I could feel.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get kind of thrusted in the front of it, and rightfully so. But there's a ton of support from, various parts of the CUNY community to support this and see this. I think CUNY's taking this to the right approach as like, hey, this should be done, and so let's do it at a level commensurate to our other sports programs. A, and then I think B, I think they see this as something they should be proud that they have, right? Like almost like a badge of honor to have this program and support it accordingly.
Now, I'm sure you know that Malky and Destiny, I mean, they've been doing this since they were kids through the Viscardi system and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so for me to see it from the gym at Viscardi to Queens College is like, wow, a concept that I grew up with is now making it mainstream. That's very special. But I think the NWBA, which you just mentioned, is also working to make that mainstream. So you're 4-0 in the NWBA. I want to know, you there, right?
Yep.
I want to know what that means to you to be 4-0 and basically your first season as head coach of Team CUNY.
It just means a lot of work ahead. I am proud of our student athletes and the community that supports it, the university at large, from the chancellorate on down. And I think we've made great strides, but I also know there's a long road to hoe. So I think that, I'm proud of our athletes for what they've been able to accomplish now, and all of them have done really well academically, right? Which is kind of the, what I really stress to them is, we need you to be a student athlete, and basketball is going to take you so far, but that degree, that CUNY degree from, Queens College, Hunter, wherever it may be, is going to be the more important thing. So, I think we've done a great job in starting to build the culture and
on that point, a 3.4 team GPA in fall. I mean, that's just hitting it home. What you're bringing to the forefront here.
Yeah, and that's not me. Like that's all our student athletes, right? So all the credit in the world goes to them. And so I think we've started the process of laying a foundation for something that can be successful long term. And I look forward to seeing, the levels that our student athletes can arrive at.
Now, I believe there are scholarships in certain places for wheelchair basketball. Is there not?
Correct. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously we're going to hopefully get there with CUNY, but do you think the NWBA is going to help you guys get to that point?
No, I mean, the NWBA is kind of a governing body. And so it wouldn't be their role to facilitate something like that. I think the NWBA I'm the vice president of the board of directors, right? So I think the NWBA loves the idea of growth, especially in the collegiate division and more specifically the collegiate women's side. So I think they're really supportive and happy to see the growth initiative, but like the maturation and development of the program will be more centralized within CUNY.
But I think to me, the fact there are places that do scholarships means that this is becoming a serious sport. I mean, from where it was a few years ago, at least.
Yeah, no, I would like to see more growth. I don't understand why more universities can't support an initiative like this. But when people ask me like how we got things started at CUNY, I mean, I think you need to approach universities with a business justification as to why these programs are important, not necessarily the inclusive nature, right? Just because, in this time with revenue crunches and drop in enrollment, you need to show, the value that this program has to the overall mission of the university.
I guess in Viscardi, to me, it always felt like something fun to do, like wheelchair basketball. But as these kids are getting older, I could see that they are determined to do more than just having a fun sport. You know what I mean? They're determined, and you guys are helping them with that.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're glad that there's such a great feeder system from the Viscardi school, and Dr. Rosa is obviously over there. Yep. Now, Dr. Rosa, a dear friend of mine. And so we wish him the best. And I've told him if he finds any hoopers to send them my way.
Well, that's very cool. On that note, Ryan, thanks so much for joining. And we want more and more people with eyeballs on this sport, because it's not only adapting, for those in the community, but for the outside too. It's something to learn from and enjoy also.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you taking the time to set this up, and look forward to continual conversation as the season goes along here.
And good luck in Edinburgh and Illinois. We'll be following.
All right. Thanks, man.
I'm Alex Garrett on Alex Garrett Podcasting, where we're always adapting. That was perfect, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem, man.